Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and today we're talking about the Transformers. But before we get into that, smash like, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment. That helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. Also, we love hearing from you guys. We've got a great community here, and it's all thanks to you. So thank you so much for being here. So, all that said, let's dive in. The prologue to today's story takes place in space, where Landmine is overseeing a team of former Autobots in the asteroid belt of our solar system. The team consists of Barrage, Blastmaster, Cloudburst, Cloudraker, Heave, Lightspeed, Missile Master, Moonrock, Phaser, Rad, and Skyfall. And under the guidance of Landmine, they are mining asteroids. Countdown radios Landmine and asks how everything's going. So Landmine reports in that all is well and they have another shipment of ore. So a former Decepticon called Astrotrain flies out to where the mining operation is and they load the ore. And that brings us to the main plot of this game session. Astrotrain flies back to Cybertron where there is a huge group of former Autobots and former Decepticons. And they are finally patching the huge missing section of Cybertron's South Pole. Astrotrain lands at the construction site, and here we see a ton of characters: Annihilator, Bone Crusher, Brawn, Buckethead, Cement Head, Crumble, Crush Bull, Decimator, Digger, Dirt Boss, Dominator, Drill Bit, Drivetrain, Dust Storm, Eradicator, Erector, Excavator, Front Loader, Gran, Arm, Grapple, Gravedigger, Gren, Grimlock, Grit, Ground Buster, Ground Pounder, Hammer, Hauler, Heavy Load, High Tower, Hook, Huffer, Iron Lift, Iron Works, Knockout, Long Haul, Mixing, Mixmaster, Quick Mix, Retro, Scavenger, Scoop, Scrapper, Sledge, Sludge, Steam Hammer, Stone Cruncher, Surge, Takedown, Terror Tread, Shredder, Twin Twist, Wedge, and Wide Load. Some of them keep working, while others unload the ore from Astrotrain. And one of the younger guys is a two-tone green excavator. When he was created, his original name was Build Hurricane, and that is translated, by the way, from Japanese, and is so often the case. You lose a little something when you translate it from one language to another. But at any rate, so he's a fanboy who recently changed his name to Grimlock. And here we learn a couple of things. The first is that there's some sort of thing going on in my game world that seems to be a mixture of mixed martial arts and old school professional wrestling, kind of like the WWF. And quite literally, when it comes to this sport, Grimlock is king. And when I say Grimlock this time, I am referring to the original Grimlock, who is gray and silver and gold and red and black. And he can transform into a huge metal Tyrannosaurus Rex. That Grimlock is the undisputed heavyweight champ, right? This new, younger Grimlock, who's green and turns into a construction vehicle, is a fan of the original Grimlock. Does that make sense? As always, if something doesn't make sense, ask me in the comments section and I'll do my best to clear it up. So, one of the other construction workers here is a silver, gold, gray, black, and red robotic brontosaurus named Sludge, whose usual job is demolitions, right? He knocks down ruined buildings so that the workers can build whatever new building Grapple has designed. Anyways, during the war, Sludge was under the command of the original Grimlock. So this new kid has a fanboy moment and he's asking Sludge what his old commander was like. But to the kid's dismay, Sludge is a man of few words. He has a low voice, talks slow, and can barely string together a basic sentence. So he just says things like, him strong, him old leader, stuff like that. Also, here within earshot is Long Haul. He's a green dump truck with purple trim that carried some of the space ore over here. And Long Haul transforms into his robot mode. And the Constructicons and the Dinobots have a long standing rivalry since they were some of the more heavy duty guys on opposite sides of the Civil War. So Long Haul talks trash to Sludge. And to the credit of Sludge, even though he is stupid, he doesn't take the bait. But the new kid does, right? So the fanboy punches Long Haul for besmirching the good name of his role model. And if you start a fight with one Constructicon, you start a fight with all of them. So Bone Crusher, Hook, Long Haul, Mixmaster, Scavenger, and Scrapper merge to form Devastator. In response to this, Crush Bull, Digger, Iron Lift, Grand Arm, Treader, and Mixing merge to form Six Builder. And they defend the kid from Devastator. And you'd think that it would end there, but it doesn't. Annihilator, Decimator, Dominator, Eradicator, and Steamhammer merge to form Buildmaster. Buckethead, Dirt Boss, Drill Bit, Front Loader, Gravedigger, and Gren merge to form Buildtron. Grimlock, Heavy Load, Hightower, and Wedge merge to form Build King. And we even get a combiner out of the leftover guys like Drivetrain, Erector, Hauler, Quick Mix, Scoop, and Wide Load, who, by the way, in various bits of fiction here and there are referred to as quote unquote former Constructicons. Point being, so we have three heroic combiners facing off against three villainous combiners. And this was the main thing that took up the most time for this game session. And it was a knockdown, drag out fight until the cops showed up. So what that looks like is some huge gray rockets land and several normal sized police cars drive down the ramps out of these rockets. And then the rockets transform into these huge combiner sized robots that are called Guardian robots. And each one is mostly blue and white. And these giant robots break up the combiner fight. And the combiners are outnumbered by Guardian robots about 2-1. Each combiner is then forced to revert into its individual components. And all of these construction workers, the heroes and villains alike, are all placed in stasis cuffs until they can be questioned. Chromia, Nightbeat, Prowl, Punch, Searchlight, Stakeout, Streetwise, and Strongarm get the situation under control. Everyone is questioned, and in the end, the stasis cuffs are taken off of the former Autobots. Hook speaks up, saying that this is profiling and discrimination. Prowl insists that it is not. Prowl says that Long Haul started this and the other Constructicons chose to back him up. Hook says that Starscream is right and the Autobots are unjust oppressors. Which brings us to the epilogue, where we see that Starscream is now a radio show host who talks about news and politics. His usual thing is to talk about Zarek, the organic alien from the planet Nebulos, who was the final leader of the Decepticons. It was Zarek who surrendered and ended the war. And Starscream is racist against all organic beings. So he screams into his microphone about how Zarek never should have been leader at all, and how he certainly had no rights as an outsider to dictate the terms of surrender. And when Starscream hears about the brawl on the construction site today, he twists the facts. He says that this kid who calls himself Grimlock is a sycophant to the Autobots and an instigator to the poor Constructicons, who he even describes as disabled veterans. Starscream reminds his listeners that the Constructicons were once attacked by a mysterious assailant known only by the nickname of Robo Smasher. And according to Starscream, it lobotomized them all. So he refers to them as mentally handicapped. And Starscream says that as of tonight, the Constructicons are in jail. And soon they will get a trial, but the judge is Ultra Magnus, the same judge who sentenced Megatron and Galvatron to life in prison for supposed war crimes. Starscream rants about how Magnus is yet another Autobot oppressor and how he doesn't even know the meaning of fair trial. And undoubtedly, the Constructicons will be told that they will receive outpatient rehab at a community mental health center. But according to Starscream, what will really happen is they will be brainwashed in an Autobot indoctrination center, probably the same facility that is brainwashing Breakdown, Darkwing, Dead End, Dreadwing, and Wild Rider, bending them all to the will of the Autobots. Starscream says that the time to rise up is at hand, and he tells his listeners that he will lead them to victory, and he alone has what it takes to throw off the shackles of their oppressors. Brainstorm is in the medical facility that Starscream is ranting about, and he is listening to Starscream's broadcast. Brainstorm says to Ratchet, "Can you believe this guy?" And Ratchet tells Brainstorm to turn that crap off. Blur arrives with a much needed organ, and as soon as they have it in hand, First Aid, Fix It, and Ratchet install the metallic internal organ into the body of the construction worker on the operating table. Blur heard the broadcast and says he doesn't know why Optimus Prime allows Starscream to spread such lies. Ratchet, cranky as ever, says that if Optimus were here, he would probably remind Blur that freedom is the right of all sentient beings. And speaking of Optimus Prime, as our epilogue draws to an end, we see him in Washington, D.C., along with Elita One, his conjuncts Endura, and their daughter, Bellis. Optimus has agreed to be part of a round table of sorts, alongside He-Man of Eternia, Leonardo of the Ninja Turtles, Lion-O of the Thundercats, Matt Tracker of Mask, etc. In other words, each member of this group is the leader slash main guy from an old 80s toy line slash cartoon. And the idea is that moving forward in our game world, these characters are going to be a sort of advisory council to the president. So when there are difficult decisions that need to be made, these characters will discuss it, and hopefully then the future of our game world will be in the best hands possible. And that was it for this adventure. Before we played this one, several of my players were having a hard time understanding what the Transformers would be like if there was no war. So I felt like this was good because after this, it felt like everyone was more on the same page and they were starting to see what I had envisioned. So I was happy with how this one turned out. Hopefully, you were happy hearing about it. If so, as always, smash like, make sure you're subscribed, and leave us a comment. And from all of us here at the longest running superhero role playing game on earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure.